I will apologize to the general listening public for the fact that I'm a little out of sorts today. I have gotten used to taking Melissa to work, and so every morning I am gaily greeted by the green-handed mayor of, where am I passing? Which high school is it? Who am I? What's going on?
Nixon's still president.
I think Nixon is, at least still knocking around in my head somewhere. In the 11/22/63 of it all. So the mayor of Tigard, as I have dubbed him, every morning as we pass the Tigard High School, there is always this older gentleman who has these neon green gloves that he wears, and he waves at every car that passes and every person that he encounters. So he's either cruising for high school girls, which I suspect, or he is running for some sort of public office, and he's trying to get as much adulation in the voting public. Because he stops and very wildly gesticulates, like as though he were a street performer, trying to, hail people, but he will turn around and face the other direction. He walks backwards and waves, and he waves at every car that passes by. So I have somewhat... I don't want to. My brain, as I said, I'm not in contact with the mothership these days. I'm trying to be effectual with him when I say that he is now the mayor of Tigard. So we always chuckle.
Well, you want to stay on his good side, so that the one day when he finally flips the switch, there, he's like, "Oh, I remember you. You were the nice one. You can go."
And see, the reason that I say this is not because of the Walking Dead parallel that you just threw at me, but because you also these days are rubbing elbows and hobnobbing with mayors yourself and other holders of public office. So I want to try to be as important as you, but I simply wave to the mayor. I don't have conversations.
I see. You are referencing my misplaced... You know what? I should have taken advantage of the unsend.
Should have.
But then it says unsent, so I figured, well, I should just explain. To summarize, I was sending my girlfriend a message just saying that I just got to meet the mayor of a very small town at the Hampton History Museum, where they were doing a little prohibition exhibit. And I got to talk with him for a couple minutes of a small town. So it's not like, me and the mayor, de Blasio here got to hang out, and mistakenly sent it to the group in which we are all part of. And here I am now having to live it down.
As has famously been stated on this show, the internet doesn't forget. And furthermore, it just makes me envision like the Adam West mayor of Quahog, that you were just having a conversation with a crazy, like, cat-crazed man. Like, "Oh, hello, lovely to meet you. I hear you're Dr. Michael, is it?"
That's a very good impression.
Well, why, thank you, Bat friend. I'm a good man. I use my left and right turn indicators in my car, specifically the Batmobile, and it's a wonderful time for all involved. Be safe while you're behind the wheel, friends. Now, Robin, to my bat pole.
Yes, I will think of you when I'm gifted the keys to the city.
Oh, well, there are multiples all through it. I usually it's just a key, comically sized, which I would hate to see the door that goes to. This is letting some sort of craven creature out from some giant cavern somewhere.
Well, one is the key to the city, and the other is the doors to perception, my friend. Free your mind.
I'd prefer the key to your heart. But
I thought he was gonna say that too.
Only in Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love and murderers who staple dollar bills to hallway walls.
Well, they do say mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery or something to that effect. And as you and I are both sitting here with our...
It's like, that's why you're dressing like me these days. Okay. It's intended as flattery.
So I should get one of those newsy caps, right?
I've had mine for many, many years.
See, this is the claim now. Are we going to have to start providing like photographic evidence to the first documented appearance of the hats?
I can provide this. I have said documented evidence.
As do I. There are photos of me in these out in public, at least from 2006 forward. So,
I think I can reach back to 04. I'm pretty sure there's a couple high school pics of me in it.
Oh.
So, So,
man, yeah. I'm sure you were just a delight to be around then. If I'm hipster.
Meanwhile, I was that edgy kid that had a trilby. So,
ooh.
Yeah, I actually just gave those away a couple weeks ago because they've been collecting dust for the last 5-6 years, thankfully so.
What a sad state of affairs that is.
Did you at least feed your Digimon?
No. I always played Pokemon, thank you. Though I did collect Digimon cards because a soft spot in my heart
and pants.
For the original Digimon movie, considering that was my first soundtrack, first album and all that. Yeah.
I always think of these as just like, someone speaking with a very heavy Jamaican accent. Every time I heard them, I was always like, oh, really? I didn't know you were from the islands. Gone, go play with your Digimon. You got to pick up your Pokemon. You got to take them down. You got to train them. Because if you don't train them, you're never going to win the fight when you're having it. You can't see the eyes of the demon until him come calling. And so hats off to our prior conversation and my marvelous accents for this week is how I'm going to compensate for my lack of verbal dexterity. But I can say, now that we've gotten through that by the eternal, behold. It is the Disinformed podcast. I'm Shane.
And I'm
Michael.
All right, we're back on that shit train again. Good. But I have to issue apologies because I was read the riot act by several individuals. Of the 4 people that are still listening to the show, I was very sorely chastened for not having contributed intros to the 2 subsequent episodes after I fled into the night. Oh,
man. I can't even imagine what people said about my intro for part 3.
Part 3, I got in one particular text, which I was very delighted by. It was just somebody that put in big quotes. I was like, yeah, he's the editor. He could take that out. He didn't need to have an in the intro, and he did it anyway. God bless him. So
it was a little jarring when your voice hops in at the end, Shane.
That's what I heard. Yes, that was the main criticism. Is they're like a thief in the night. You haven't said a word for an hour and a half, and then all of a sudden it's like, and that's going to wrap it up. It's like, I'm just sponsoring the podcast now. I'm not actually a contributor. I know when to get out. But it was a fun time. I'm glad. I jokingly had said I'd gotten Melissa. We'd had dinner, and then we had finished up. But I had left everything configured. I didn't tear down because I needed to rush out the door to go get her. And so when I came back in, I jokingly was like, "Oh, I'll just I'll see what's happening." And so I hit the link, and you were still on.
Yep,
all of you were still chatting,
and I'm like, quick second, and you noped out of there.
Yeah, I was like. Too. I was like, I don't want to interrupt because, one, it would be even weirder if I just disappeared for a chunk. I was like, you've been talking for 3 hours, and then my ass is just like, oh, since you're still here.
Might have fitted in with the closing at least, because it's like, oh, Shane has been around. He's just been quiet as opposed to...
It's like a babe in the woods. I just amble into, okay, now this is whether any of this stuff is bullshit. It's like, I have no idea. I wouldn't be able to tell you regardless. But my brother was the one who should have been contributing because he is a certified DM and very keen on it. He probably has, as I've mentioned to Jess before, he's got more dice than she does. And there's a pretty sincere... My brother has got the same problems that I do with collecting, as you can tell from the nonsense behind me, but his is a little bit more dastardly. I don't think he would mind me saying, but we've had a running joke now. He has bought enough soap that I'm fairly certain he could start an elephant refuge and clean all of them if it was not human grade soap. He has an entire closet and most of his bathroom that is dedicated to the volume of soap that he has gotten into. Yeah, he's got.
Like
we all have compulsions. Yes, the actual boutique soap that people sell. Like, he got every Dr. Squatch scent that you can get, and then he's running through like a laundry list of all of these sites that he's gone to, and so he's starting a YouTube channel, which I may or may not be taking part in, where he is just going to do reviews of the various scents that he has purchased, and since I have been making my own beard oil, he and I have been talking about doing that as a side hustle as well, so that we can start manufacturing things.
And then as a further side hustle, there'll be an OnlyFans page where you then get to see you use the soap.
In real time.
If people want to watch me scrub my face, that's fine. I think anything beyond what is in the Brady Bunch box that you're seeing right now is not going to get me any money. It might get me flagged or thrown into a Turkish prison, but I don't think anybody's going to be clamoring to give me money to see what's hiding under the clothes here. The goodie box is not open for business. But so you gentlemen will be able to tell me how much of the last couple weeks' discussion was just completely debunked by the material, since Michael had to include caveats of things that were stated in this conversation may be completely inaccurate as of date of publication.
I would say probably about 90%.
Oh, I'd say even more than that, because they just retroactively said, the old one's staying there and you can choose which one.
Take back.
Yeah, I mean, effectively, there is no change since they're releasing the new one, but saying, hey, the old one's still going to be fine, and your choice, whichever one you want.
It is a fun little time capsule, though, for, the chaos writ large that was occurring at that moment, and we can all go back and say, hey, you remember when they made that really ill-informed decision to revoke everybody's prior access?
Well, I just really loved Jess's passion about it. That's what was entertaining to me. So even as aside from the time capsule that you were talking about, it's neat just to see somebody that, discusses something that they're passionate about.
Yeah, she is probably the most dedicated dungeoner that I have ever encountered in the course of my life. Is my brother flirts with it, but he mostly likes to utilize it as like a family activity. So everybody coalesces around theirs, and it's a little more family friendly. Mm-hmm. But speaking of which, they played Gloom with me once, and I disabused them all of the notion, because I had someone who was gender swapping in the course of my storytelling, and I made a bunch of people very uncomfortable, because no one wanted to have that discussion at the table in front of my, at that time, preteen nieces that people have, there's a spectrum out there, and I don't think anybody was keen on me being the one to give them that talk. So, yeah. I'm always hep for segues. Or transitions, if you will.
Transition, very nice.
But, so for the uninitiated amongst you, because I assume we have a topic, since Michael came in hot here, complete with a Sauvignon Blanc that he is just delicately sipping now. Or is that a cold brew?
Oh, me? I thought you were talking about Doc here. No, I'm drinking a beer.
Man. Yeah, don't let's start having the name game on this. I have tried to make very clear lines of demarcation that if I say Michael, I'm referring to you. And since this is version 2.0 as dedicated here, and he has a title, he will be Doc or Dr. Michael or the Doctor. Mm-hmm. Or if you're a fan of the Burbs, I can say, my brother.
Brother!
Yeah, in my, in the kind of distance gaming group that I get together with on the weekend, one of my friends is also named Michael. So usually in that group, he's Mr. Michael, I'm Dr. Michael. And that's typically what I've gone with here, where I also refer to you as Mr. Michael.
True.
Just for the easy demarcation of the two.
And you can just call me Mr. Mister. I don't know what the Mista lady was chasing me, but so in any event, for the uninitiated amongst you who have not listened to this show ever, welcome. It's lovely to see you. Grab a muffin, sit down. We're very friendly here. But what we typically do is we delve into random esoteric topics, and in the course of explaining them to one another, we lie occasionally. That is the fun of the show. It is supposed to be entertaining, but, results may vary dependent upon, the randomness of the evening or whether or not I'm effectively nailing transitions. And so, based on that, I will say, however, that we do not let you leave disinformed. No. There's a denouement at the end of the episode. We explained what we lied about and why, in the hopes that we can edumacate you slightly. So what are we chatting about this evening, gentlemen?
Well, tonight you will have to go easy with me, Daddy, there, because you're going to be popping my cherry on presentations.
Ooh.
It's a delicate pun.
Yes. To begin with, before we get into the topic itself, I will just preface that so I don't forget that this evening we're going back to the classic format.
Indeed, long-time listener, first-time caller.
That's right. That's right. For those tuning in the last little while, we haven't done a classic format show here, so we're taking it back, swinging to the oldies, if you will.
Thank you for making me feel both geriatric and make me think of Clerks 2 all in one fell swoop. I'm taking it back.
So tonight there's 5 lies. Also, along the 5 lies, I will go ahead and throw out as an homage to some of the former episodes. I will go ahead and state up front that of those 5 lies, one of them is a number lie.
Oh, you sorry son of a...
But I will state that the number lie should be remarkably easy to catch, especially for Michael. And
famous last words.
Incredibly doubtful.
Yes.
So they haven't sold 12 billion records in totality, is what you're saying.
So, what originally got me into... Yes, I'm going to ignore that.
Well, I'm not.
So, what originally got me into this podcast was...
not our skill or entertainment value.
No, was in search of a particular topic, which I was lied to by the episode name, making me think that that would be here. It turns out it wasn't, so I thought, well, what the hell, I'll contribute it myself. So, gentlemen, brush off your white teeth and black thoughts, throw on your zoot suits, hop into your Rapid City muscle car or your Soul Cadillac, because it's time to get ferociously stoned, swing by and pick up the kids on the street, and live the bigger life. Tonight, we are talking about the Cherry Poppin Daddies.
So, in case you didn't know, Michael, there were 17 song titles in the course of that one sentence.
I figured as much.
Allow me to explain the joke to you.
Okay.
Just so you feel at home for once.
All right.
Incorrect.
I belong.
Incorrect. There were no song titles. There were, however, the album titles of every album of theirs, except for the compilation albums. So all original album titles, or album titles of their originals.
I mean, technically, every album is a compilation. Let's just...
Well, yes, but you know what I meant.
I do, but see, if we're splitting hairs, we're going to be bald real quick.
You got me by my short and curlies. I
already beat you to bald, so I'm not sure we're going to get any further.
Well, neither of us will know. With these lovely hats.
Yeah,
I should have worn a fedora tonight.
I was going to say, for those, I don't think it would have worked with the headphones, but for those who are just purely on the audio medium, we're going to note here that Doc is being accused of gimmick infringement because he came on with both my glasses and my hat this evening.
Well, you never wear your glasses, so I wouldn't have known.
So yes, now we've decided we're going to do the world's worst version of us playing Guess Who right now. Does he have glasses? Yes.
Uh-oh. Well.
Shit.
So, as I said, tonight we're talking about the Cherry Poppin Daddies. Now, if you will recall, episode 69 of the Disinformed podcast was about the Cherry Poppin Daddies.
No, it wasn't. It was about the Utah monolith because I was not creative and I couldn't come up with a good one for episode 69. And it's a regret I live to this day.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner. I told you the episode, the number lie, rather, would be remarkably easy to catch.
Well, bless you within the first minute of the episode there. Well done.
Correct. It was, and it was an homage to you guys. I thought I'd throw out the episode number. It was, in fact, episode 80.
You didn't want to say that Berlin is a city in Russia?
Yes.
You didn't want to be that easy.
Yes. I thought if I was going to throw a number lie in, since I especially have rallied against them so heavily, I thought, well, what the hell? I'm going to, my first at bat here, I'll throw in a number lie and I'll have it be an episode number of the Disinformed podcast, which is, I thought, 69 should be remarkably low hanging fruit in general, but also given Mr. Michael's, editing and all that. And I know that the episode number of 69 would probably jump into his head of, no, it was about, and it did. So,
because it's a regret I live with to this day.
Not just starting the show, which should be the regret he's actually living with.
That is the main regret. I have many regrets.
No rag rats.
So, as I said, you two are, in fact, popping my cherry here when it comes to podcast hosting.
It's just not a metaphor I want to keep living with. Can we?
And he's like, oh no, this is every other paragraph of popping.
That's right. Well, basically, I was just throwing that out there because with limited experience on this, I will say that I have broken this down into 3 sections. Now, whether or not those 3 sections are in fact 3-parters, which I think they might be, or, but having not done this myself before, I don't really know how quickly one plows through the material gathered.
Not very.
So I figured it could be either 3 parts or a single episode that is just 3 acts, or just a horribly disjointed 2-parter.
And yet again, a podcast brought to you by academics. Yes. I have my introductory paragraph, and then I have the body of the entire text, and then my summary paragraph, and then we're done.
So, I thought to discuss the Cherry Poppin Daddies, who happen to be one of my favorite bands. I thought they were the apex, the I Ching. Well, yes, but then we've also, talked at length Metallica, and I've name dropped Reverend Horde and Heat and stuff there. But yes, the Cherry Poppin Daddies are, the pinnacle of it. But
they're your current. I look at it like the cylinders of a revolver. Is I basically have the same 7 to 8 different bands that I love, and it just depended upon the day, something can cycle in. So
I would say that's very. I would say that's
very
very,
apt.
very similar to me, except I'd probably nail it down to 3. There's a solid 3 that I'll cycle through, and then I would expand it out to 8 of if I was naming top 10 bands, here they are. But the top of the mountain are really easy to peg.
Okay.
So
dirty. Speaking of popping cherries.
That's right.
Ooh.
Yeah.
So I thought part 1 would be the Cherry Poppin Babies. Only since we're starting at their formation.
Our
YouTube,
apologies.
that was in jest.
Yes,
that was in jest. Parody.
We're also not trafficking in children right now, just so that we know. Lest the Biden administration come for us as well.
Oh, jeez.
Well, come on. We're talking about the formation of the band. Yeah, you get it.
I mean, the baby is what happens once the cherries popped in certain instances. But
oh, dear.
Touche.
Oh.
Wedding Night Pregnancy is the non-released Cherry Poppin Daddies album.
All right. So getting to their formation then. So, it all begins in 1981. So, following his high school graduation in 1981, Steve Perry left his hometown of Peoria, Arizona, for Eugene, Oregon, to pursue track and field and...
Is no one important comes from Peoria, Arizona. I'm going to call bullshit on that.
Excuse you.
You did not grow up in Peoria.
I did not.
You
I was
lived.
born in 1981, though, so I think there's a weird confluence of nonsense happening here. But
is Peoria, Arizona bullshit?
Peoria, Arizona is in fact bullshit.
Exactly.
And was purposely chosen as a little tip of the hat to y'all.
Was it Peoria, Illinois?
No, it was in fact Binghamton, New York. Binghamton?
Yeah, Binghamton.
Binghamton. It's just random scatting noises.
That's
New
how
York.
they got it. Yeah.
New York.
Correct, yeah. Somewhere in New York. So
riot. Yes.
New York.
Binghamton, New York, for Eugene, Oregon. So he leaves New York, goes to Eugene, Oregon to pursue a track and field and a chemistry degree from the University of Oreon.
Wow, those are very disparate things.
Yes, exactly.
Mixing chemicals while he's...
Speaking of mixing chemicals, yes.
Speaking of which, I don't know, have any of you seen the We Need to Talk About Cosby documentary?
No, I haven't.
Really fascinating. I would absolutely recommend it. It's a Showtime thing, so if you're a Paramount Plus, which speaking of which, I finally did watch The Offer. And I loved it. It was fantastic.
I thought you might, yeah.
I can see why Coppola is saying that it is not true to life and says it's a little hyperbolic because he is depicted as being such a diva. But no, it was very entertaining, and I learned a lot from the course of watching that, and I thought the depictions were really excellent. So thank you for the recommendation. I'm glad I got around to it.
Yeah, I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Knew it would be right up your alley there. And initially, when I heard the premise of it, I was like, oh, well, that could be entertaining, but it also could be rather dull. I mean, just kind of the behind the scenes of the making of a film. Mm-hmm. But as a whole, it was better than Godfather 3.
It was strangely serpentine, and I had no idea the machinations that had to go through. So, Mr. Michael, if you get a wild hair, definitely check it out. Okay. You've never seen The Godfather, so you're not going to care, but it's interesting enough.
I'll have to see if the Cosby bit is going to be on Paramount Plus as well now, because I hear that they're merging. Oh, it is already? Okay.
It is, yeah. That's what I watched it through.
Okay, yeah, because I know that they're merging Showtime or whatever is now folding in with Paramount. So I don't know if that means that all of the Showtime streaming stuff is now going to carry over.
Does that mean Dexter's going to be on there?
That's my hope. That's my hope.
I have been watching. I started the first show of the new season, and
so it's already on there.
It's already on there. Yes.
Oh, phenomenal! Okay,
I literally have goosebumps because I'm excited. Oh,
well, I will tell you, I watched the first 3 minutes of it and turned it off. I move in such strange waves these days that
well, in 3 minutes isn't enough to make a real judgment.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah, I was gonna say no. I know Shane will give it his best effort. That's how he's always been. He said that before. He has a rule for reading a new book series that he always gives it until page 60 or so before he actually puts it down. So if it's 3 minutes, that does not bode well at all.
I was also just not in the mood at that time. Okay, I think I'd started it under the auspices. I'm waffling a lot these days. Let's not, we won't talk about my list. I mean, we can. I just don't need to subject you all to a therapy session
need to
here.
Fill all your little pockets full of syrup.
I'm just,
Is that a
awkward
Canadian phrase or something?
No, he said he's waffling.
Oh.
For the Canadian who said no one likes maple up in that country, I'm shaking my head. But no, I have my entertainment impulses have just been so schizophrenic. But I am, as of right now, the one consistent thing I have had, I am 780 pages into Wolves of the Calla. Not Wolves of the Calla. I'm in Wizard and Glass right now. Sorry. Okay. So, so I have burnt through the first 3 books of the cycle and am working my way almost through the 4th book again. So I will have completed the Dark Tower probably by the time we hit March.
Nice.
Again,
nice.
Which I needed to. It's been a hot minute, but that was and then I will, return to reading new King material to me so that I can complete the run. But I was in the mood to reread The Dark Tower since we got into the Salem's Lot talk a while back.
That's a good point. I do want to reread that, but I do want to read what was it? Lost in Atlantis? Is that the one?
Hearts in Atlantis.
Hearts. That's what it was. I do want to read that one before I go back.
Yes, got to get the low men in the yellow coats. Yes.
Exactly.
You got to know who Ted Brodigan is. It's very important. Mm-hmm. Also, they're great stories. Anyway, not to do our usual and derail in its entirely.
No, I think as well. I was just thinking myself that I had picked up several Kindle books of Kings there with the hope of getting to read them, but as I told you gentlemen there, I recently picked up one side job and now a second side job, and doing the same sort of thing, and it's just zapped all my bloody time. If I wasn't on with you guys right now, I'd literally be just reviewing papers. So it's not as fun.
It's that Sigma male grind set, man. You gotta just keep it. I'm sorry, I couldn't do the bit. I couldn't.
You almost had it, but no. In all honesty, though, we should applaud the fact that you're presenting an episode presently, given that context. So we appreciate the effort to which you've expended to get us a little entertainment here.
Truthfully, it's you were talking about not to use use us as therapy. This is like my little downtime. This and the game time, the couple hours that I set aside for the games on Saturday is my little like de-stress time there. So all's well.
I'm sure that your girlfriend loves to hear that.
Well, when we got a little 16-month-old, we don't really get to just hang out and have fun like, our hands are always full there. So this is my own little time to step away and not have to worry about the little one. Otherwise, one of the two of us is chasing after her.
See, that's what happens when you pop the cherry.
That's right. Mm-hmm. And that's how you get these babies.
Them babies.
All right. So where we left off, Steve Perry is now in Oregon, pursuing his degree at the University of Oregon there. So a punk rock devotee since adolescence, Steve Perry, not of Journey fame, soon became engrossed in Eugene's underground music scene, where he eventually met and befriended musician and fellow university student Dan Schmidt. Sharing similar musical ambitions and a mutual disinterest in school, the pair agreed to drop out of college together and start a band, forming the punk trio The Jazz Greats in 1983.
It sounds like musicians.
Yeah. Yeah, not necessarily the wisest move, dropping out of college to do the band life. But to each their own, and obviously some people manage to be very successful at it. Mm-hmm. And then others come out with one hit and then disappear for the next 20 years.
We're not speaking of anybody in particular, but...
So the Jazz Greats evolved into a Paisley Underground-styled garage rock group called Saint Huck, which lasted from 84 to 1987. And
there's a descriptor. I just to take a pause. Yes.
Yeah, I thought you said like pasty, and I'm like, probably not wrong, but
Paisley.
I know.
Okay, that's no. There was a venue in Phoenix I used to play very frequently called the Paisley Violin, which really was our choice as well. So yes, we're just fusing all sorts of nonsense, but it's a wonderful descriptor. It's very apt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Saint Huck, if you go on YouTube, there's just a couple of years ago, actually, I hadn't even seen them until I was doing the research for this. Somebody who was, I guess, in an audience group there back in like 86 or so, just filmed a whole bunch of different like shows of performances of Saint Huck there. So it's kind of, and it's a very interesting video to watch. It's like an hour long or so. There's like 2 or 3 of them that the person uploaded. It's interesting for me because it's like, there's Steve Perry, like a young Steve Perry doing his thing. But also it's a really interesting little like slice of life moment because it's a full hour and they're just playing in some park. Right.
Okay.
And whoever's filming at that time, is obviously, doing the band as well, but then spends a lot of time like turning the camera just to the crowd who's like, enjoying the show. Yeah. And so it's very interesting just to see these little like snippets of just, young college students hanging out, in 1986 and you see them chatting with each other and the clothes they're wearing and whatnot. It's just a nice little like slice of life moment that you don't get too much of from that period just because not everybody had a camera in their pocket like we do today.
I was going to say also audio quality is probably abysmal, but still.
Yes. Yeah, no, exactly. The audio quality is terrible, but it is very much like what people do nowadays. Somebody pulls out their phone and films the whole thing and turns around, films the audience. So it's very much what we see today, but you don't usually see too much of in 86. So it's kind of neat to watch.
Yeah, it's, you think back to when bootlegging really began, and since there's such a fervor for it within like the Grateful Dead community, you wonder what the catalyst is for all of that starting. That would be an interesting well to go down at some point. Strangely enough, I don't know if either of you use Amazon Music, but there is a weird trend that I've noticed with a lot of stuff, and with Metallica in particular, so you might appreciate this, Doc. There is a real plethora of like live recordings that are suddenly just being lurched into all of the material. I'm not sure if this is on every platform, but like obviously Pearl Jam was doing this for years where they were just recording every single show that they did and releasing it. But now it's like on Amazon Music right now, if you pull it up, there's like Metallica live from some random venue in 1987. And they have a full concert there. And then there's multiples there. So I'm like Alice in Chains, I pull up, they have them live at multiple venues. So it's like every prominent band now, they've just suddenly unearthed all of this live material that they're releasing as albums. phones these days, and I don't know if that's exclusive to Amazon or if that's just everywhere.
Huh.
But it's happening.
I've noticed it as well, but I also have Amazon Music.
Okay.
So
maybe it is just Amazon.
Yeah, it is quite interesting. As a little aside, a slight annoyance with the Amazon Music bit there. I listen to stuff in my car all the time, of course, and I've got Android Auto. And I wish there was a way to default it to Amazon Music, because if I'm in my car and I say, hey, Google, play, whatever, the new song by Metallica, it will say, oh, you need to have YouTube Music installed for it, blah, blah, blah. But if I say play Lux Eterna by Metallica on Amazon Music, there it goes. And it's able to do it fine. And I'm like, sometimes I forget to say on Amazon Music, and then it gives me the little spiel of it, and it's irritating.
Well, that's
I'm sorry, Dave.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
That's because Google owns YouTube. So they always default to their own.
Oh, no, of course.
Stuff.
I just wish that I could switch it. Or it would be I'm sure it must know, hey, he doesn't have YouTube Music. Let me default to whatever he does have, as an app. Oh, okay, here it is. Instead, it, goes to the pains to tell me, you don't have this. Yeah.
And the only reason I'm using it is that they were silly enough to give me another free trial. So every time that pops up, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll take 3 months before I just, lurch back out. So I always pop back in. I'm more annoyed by the car mode swapping on and off, because the interface on car mode is really frustrating, because you can't do anything other than it's just, here's that one playlist that we've made for you. And I prefer to use the stuff I've downloaded to the phone so that I'm not chugging up data with that stuff, and so I have to always put it off of car mode, which more endangers me than it would if you just didn't put it into car mode in the first place.
Because now you got to actually, while you're driving and everything, be like, no, get this shit out of here. Put this away.
So I always try to do that before the car is in motion, and then we go back into the other run.
Speaking of live things, Shane, something you might appreciate. Back in the 90s, I assume they probably did it later as well, but when the WWF was doing a bunch of those in-your-house shows, newly discovered to me anyways, because some of them are just getting released there that I was watching, after the main event that would be for the pay-per-view, they would do some dark matches, but they would still have all the cameras rolling, and so it would be the full production quality. And so I've only just recently seen some performances from 96 of Shawn Michaels versus Mankind, Shawn Michaels versus Goldust, and it's fascinating to watch just because they're dark matches and they're not on TV. There's a lot more just fun being had.
Yes.
Some goofy stuff that they wouldn't do if it was the actual pay-per-view still going. But it's the production quality of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
So it's really neat.
So it's the best of both worlds, really.
Yeah, they had a bunch of those that they did as Coliseum video exclusives back in the day. So they would do their television tapings of all of their squash matches. And then they would have a main event to keep the crowd engaged. So then they would have Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan come out and have a match, and they would film those and then release them for Coliseum stuff later on. And it, get revoiced by everybody. And that's part of the stuff that the Jesse Ventura lawsuit started with. But it was stuff that they were just filming for the house shows, and they had it on hand anyway because the cameras were set up since they were filming television, etc. So a lot of really interesting matches that pop up in some of that material in the archives also. They have so much stuff that they're sitting on.
That's what I was going to say, is that it makes me wonder how much, there must just be rows and rows of videos and tapes and such.
It just to go work in their archives would just be worth it, since you can go watch the stuff that you actually would enjoy seeing. If you can curate your own collection, as Cornette often says, I've got a better collection of VHS tapes here than most of these places that actually publish the material in the first place.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that all just came to light to me anyways recently. And I thought, oh yeah, Shane, you'd appreciate this. Speaking of live performances kind of getting dropped.
I was one of those horrible kids back in the day that I loved, because my mom got me really I got hooked on watching some of the shows on Saturdays and things, but it was kind of in the transitional period in the late 80s, early 90s, where they were still mostly doing enhancement masters on television, and you had to buy the pay-per-view. So my mom, because we were running a video store at the time, would bring the wrestling pay-per-view stuff home, because they'd get copies of WrestleMania 4, which is one of the first ones that I got really hooked on. and I'd get to watch the good matches finally as a kid. So then I got hooked on VHS tapes of wrestling, and WWE put out a ton of material with Coliseum Video that you could just get matches that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. And so I had a lot of those when I was a kid because, they had to shut me up somehow.
My grandpa was a big wrestling fan, so he would just order the pay-per-views, so I would just get to sit by his knee and watch them.
And that's fun. Like we have, similar frame of reference, but ours, it's time frame centric, right? So I was cresting into like my late teens or early teens and into high school when you were watching stuff as a kid. So it's funny. Like I remember watching the live when Rey Mysterio got lawn darted into the side of the television truck by Kevin Nash, like was watching that episode. And as like a 14-year-old was just completely gobsmacked that this stuff was happening, or is like, oh my God, this is actually real. It's happening. They'd been lying to us for years. Yeah, very bizarre to have experienced those things.
Yeah, I'm born in 86. So, when I'm 12, 13, 14, that's right, DX, the Attitude Era. Uh-huh. So like I'm going to school with the whole suck it and doing. Yeah, it was a little Hellraiser there, and it was fun.
Would you say you were a Hellraiser Ramon?
Oh, well, maybe when I was in elementary school, yeah. I actually did, like I remember trying to do the Razor's Edge. It's a lot harder.
You need some core strength to hold somebody up like that.
Yeah, it looks like such a simple move, and then I'm like, oh, this takes some work.
See, I always just defaulted to the sack of shit slam. That was always the easier way for it to go. I did do that and broke a bed with one of my friends from choir when we were in a hotel room in Washington, D.C. I did the sack of shit and threw him over my head, and he just completely combusted the hotel bed. It was just quite delightful.
Well, at least it's a hotel bed, so you can just be like, I don't know, I sat on it and it just gave out.
Yeah. We were doing the apartment wrestling in the worst way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but I mean, you could just, you have some shitty quality stuff here.
I thought you were saying I was fucking Akeem the African Dream over here. My tonnage took the bed down.
No, hell, I'm not saying that.
I'm saying he was implying it too.
No.
Oh man,
my fat ass destroys furniture.
No, I was thinking of a way to not have to fork out a major hotel bill. I could be $1.10 soaking wet. By the way, I'm not, obviously, for those with checking out the YouTube shorts and whatnot. But I could be $1.10 soaking wet, and if I broke the hotel bed, I'm gonna be like, I don't know. I put my suitcase on it and just caved out.
If I broke the hotel bed, I would just be telling them, wait for the Pornhub release. You'll see what happened.
That's right.
Sack of shit slam with that poor woman. Anyway, speaking of Pornhub, back to popping cherries, as it were.
That's right. So we've got the St. Huck has been formed, and we're, circa the mid-'80s here. So they decided to recruit a horn section led by an alto saxophonist, Brooks Brown, and Perry and Schmidt then went on to change their band name to its latest incarnation known as Mr. Wiggles. Named so after a Parliament song.
Reasonable, but at the same time, we're lending far too much into the cherry popping oeuvre here. It's Mr. Wiggles.
Well, you can see the evolution here. We've gone from the jazz greats to St. Huck to Mr. Wiggles now. So, like I said, named after a Parliament song, this band formed in 1988, playing their first show in Springfield, Oregon, as part of a benefit concert for workers of the Nikolai Door manufacturing plant, who were then engaged in a union strike. So...
Wait, really?
They wanted to talk him into the building by playing some, ska?
Well, no,
Perry I know how to break up the strike.
Perry's very pro, working man and stuff there.
Oh,
so, yeah,
shit.
even at a young age there, going and, supporting the union strikers there. And you will see that as you casually listen through the Cherry Poppin Daddies discography there. A lot of his songs touch on, working class problems or the working class, folk and that. So it's you're seeing the foundations of that being laid here.
Indeed, he is the Bruce Springsteen of the West Coast.
That's right, yeah.
I've always said that.
The man is on his own journey to find his way, Steve Perry.
You really we're gonna get sued. Journey's very litigious, even in a lonely world.
So, all right. So we're in the late 80s here in the Pacific Northwest, right? So as the rise of grunge began to phase punk and hardcore out of the Northwest underground scene by the late 1980s, Perry set out to start a band that stood in defiant contrast to the shoegazing attitude of alternative rock, showcasing high-energy dance music and Zappa-esque theatricality, in an attempt to create something that an audience would react to viscerally instead of passively. So very much taking that punk rock essence. Essentially, Perry took the punk rock attitude of going against the trend. He tells the Rocket, a newspaper in the Pacific Northwest, my conception of punk was doing whatever the hell you wanted as long as it had vitality and wasn't overly stupid, something exploratory and experimental, citing influence from genre-bending bands such as The Clash and the Meat Puppets.
I like The Clash better, to be completely honest with
Yes.
you. I would enjoy seeing a very lengthy concert by The Clash.
So it is very interesting here, in the late 80s there and early 90s as grunge is kind of forming in that same area, and they're both coming from this like punk foundations, right? Having the same background, like the bands that Nirvana, like Cobain and listened to growing up, are the same bands that Perry was listening to, and they both wanted to kind of take that punk rock to the next step. But it's interesting to see how drastically different the two.
They approached the anti-establishmentism from, two different perspectives. As making a pincer, one decided not to wash, the other one decided to dress up and have a pompadour. So,
well, we'll get to that because early, and we'll get there, but early Cherry Poppin Daddies concerts, although had swing music being played, in which you would think if you were just listening to it, you're listening to a band, with zoot suits on and whatnot. Mm-hmm. You've got Steve Perry, like shirtless with chains hanging down his, jeans, and very much like if you had it on mute and watched it, you would be thinking you're watching a grunge or punk rock show where there's like even a little mosh pit and stuff going on. When you unmute it, oh, this is like 1940s music.
This is also
so bizarre.
It's even more interesting because this also followed like the Neil Young doing a rockabilly album in that era, as like the balls to think like, well, I saw how poorly this went for Neil Young. Maybe I can give it a better go.
Yeah. So in their earliest incarnation, Mr. Wiggles played punk-inflected funk and soul music, though Perry's songwriting soon grew to draw heavily from a newfound interest in jazz, swing, and rhythm and blues, combining punk rock and jazz arrangements in what Perry described was a desire to contemporize American roots music by infusing it with punk energy and using modernist, socially aware lyricism.
It's really fun because you do get to kind of cognitively reframe a lot of these things once you've gotten past it. But I sincerely doubt everybody is sitting around in the iterative phases and going like, what I would really like to do? There's some societal norms I need to address at the moment. Some working men that I need to represent musically. Give me a moment.
Well, we'll see. I actually don't put it past him to have proactively gone in there with it.
He is a very cerebral individual, but I having like gone through, I'm not in any way, shape, or form comparing myself to this or putting it in the same perspective, but a lot of like the concept that we came up with was some things that you can, there was a framework in place already with some of the song and the material, and then you just kind of slap on a little plaster on the outside to
Some
help it to conform to the things that I was thinking later on. And the storytelling kind of felt that same way for me, at least. So when you're starting to then unspool what your thoughts are in cultivating concepts for a band, I feel like some of that is also like, well, this is where we wound up. And yeah, I'm sure they probably had all those influences and thought of it that way. It's just funny to hear it so eloquently stated, as though they're sitting down with a pad and a paper and going like, all right, here's our game plan, ladies and gentlemen.
All right, we need some punk, we need some funk, and we need some socially conscious lyrics. Go.
Which, I mean, punk music is really driven by that generally, so it's not hard to envision, but yeah.
That is super interesting, though. I had not thought of that initially, of course. Like, I'm just like, somebody that likes to listen to music, right? I can't pick up an instrument or craft a song for the life of me, right? I had not thought of that in this conversation. That I'm definitely gonna have to pick your brain with some questions as we go through this, then, because you're coming at it from a perspective that I couldn't hope to have, since you are literally like a songwriter and have done like very much this. So you're definitely coming at it with a perspective I could not think of, and I totally get it. Where you're like, no, sometimes you have an idea and you just end up. Well, it ends up over here instead.
Yeah, you're the arbiter of your own history, right? The only dominion that you have is just who was around to kind of argue, which is the Roger Waters versus the rest of Pink Floyd narrative, and those discussions where, it's always Roger like, oh, they kicked me out and they just couldn't put up with my highbrow idealism anymore. It's like, no, Roger, you were, by all other accounts, you're a prick, and you're very difficult to deal with, and no one wanted to have you around anymore. When you said step to the line or else, they all went, fuck you, we'll just do it over here on our own. So it's always funny to hear people kind of recite their own history. You add your own complexion a little bit as you go.
Well, and to touch on a band that we spoke of earlier, you get a little bit of that even more, still a couple decades ago, but even more recently with Jason Newsted there in Metallica.
Or even Mustaine in Metallica as well, because the same general principles. Like, everybody's like, yeah, no, Dave was a prick. We all hated him. But we just, didn't find a delicate way to tell him that when he was getting in fights and the rest of us were pretty passive.
And if you listen to Dave, he, new albums of Metallica comes out and he still wrote some of the licks on. He's like, no, that's my riff right there.
They've never done a good thing since I left.
Yeah. It's pretty much. There's one Megadeth song that I actually like, and the rest is pretty well.
I enjoy some Megadeth. It is a different animal. As much as there is a simulacrum there because they came from the same place, the origins, it's kind of like children. Mm-hmm. The mother and the father both have different personalities, and therefore, the music has a different personality to it. But Mustaine's voice, once you get used to it, I can get around, but like songs like Kick the Chair, I really like. Everybody points to it, Tout le monde, of course, because there's an acoustic guitar on it. He heard
Peace
one.
Sells is mine.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff, but as much as I hated it the first few times I heard it, like if Crush It comes on these days, I'm like, this is catchier than it deserves to be. Like, that song is annoying as hell the first time you hear it. And but I used to hate Sweating Bullets as well for that same reason, because it's very just kind of, it feels like it's a bad Primus song at points. So is that like, okay, dear God, somebody kill it. Okay, sorry, you got me foaming at the mouth.
Just quickly on a topic that we've touched on as well, because you mentioned Mustaine's voice, and that's usually what turns me off of it. Which I'm surprised you can overlook it, because you're not a fan of Axl, and so I just wanted to touch on quickly of did you see his November Rain there at Lisa Marie Presley's funeral or wake or whatever it was?
Dave Mustaine performed November Rain.
Axl Rose performed.
No, I did not, because firstly, I have been living in a bit of a cocoon for a bit. Thankfully, one of my own making. I wasn't joking. I think I mentioned this to Michael, where I talked about previously. I was like, when I get to a point where I am sort of financially solvent, and I don't really care about some of the things that are happening, it's like, you will never see my ass. And I will just evaporate into the air. And all of a sudden it's like, yeah, once I have had people poke their heads up. It's like, hey, sir, are you okay? Like, are you alive? It's like, I got out of debt. I moved to a new place. And so it's like, yeah, I don't care if I'm on social media. I don't care if I have conversations with people outside the world. I'm reading books. I'm watching movies, and I am at peace. It is really lovely. But the threat was a real one. I was like, yeah, I just kind of disappeared. It's really easy for me to get insular very quickly. So I didn't even know this had happened. I barely knew she passed.
Yeah, she passed, and I guess she wanted him to play at her memorial thing. Needless to say, I'm an Axl Rose apologist for many ways.
Understandable.
And that was a rough performance. It is worth a watch just for the first couple minutes, just to kind of get a little chuckle. It's rough.
I really I want to get into your topic, but part of the reason why I love having you on, and part of the reason I'm sure that Michael hates me to a certain extent and also loves it, is one, you can, as like Steph does this all the time with me, I very easily get talking if you let me. But you're also punching me with questions that lead me to start thinking and espousing my personal perspective on a lot of stuff. But like Axl Rose suffers from something that I notice a lot of people that have a higher vocal timbre start to suffer from. Like Chris Cornell started to hit this later, which is what impresses me so much about Ian Thornley versus everybody else is your voice starts to go when you use that high register, in particular when you use it frequently. So like Elton John, if you watch him performing on the current tour, like Disney Plus has a concert, is like one of his farewell concerts. Oh. Their stuff is pitched down dramatically. He's like maybe 2 to 3 steps. So if you hear him play Benny and the Jets, it is in an entirely different key, and he is not doing the falsetto stuff anymore. Because after a while, you're into your 70s or 80s. You don't have that range anymore. It's gone. So stuff you could do when you were in your 20s. So like I hear Axl, and it has always been kind of the law of diminishing returns. Because I doubt he was a trained vocalist. So I'm sure a lot of what he was doing was just ripping his throat up. Because even my stuff, and I was trained, I have a lot of problems with some paralysis from time to time. So yeah.
And you've mentioned that before. I think on air as well, like just anything falsetto can just really set you back. And like that was something that you were always like cautious about. Like you didn't want to go too far. You didn't want to go too hard at once.
You can strain a lot of that stuff, and it's bad bombing. You can paralyze your vocal cords. It's not good. So yeah, I don't doubt that he's starting to sound a little dodgier as he gets up.
It sounds very like shaky.
Yeah.
And yeah, it doesn't sound good, but especially tough, I suppose, for him because his songs and his style, he can't kick it down a couple.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because that's what it is. Like his whole shtick was, that. So, yeah, anyways, I just knew that you not being a fan, I was like, you might get a little.
I'll investigate it. Maybe that's something that I can put a reaction video up for, the faithful here of watch me torture myself.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so swinging back over to this, we have discussed their formation, so now we're going to move on to the early years. So we're going to be talking about 1989 to 1993. So, in 1989, the title of Mr. Wiggles was retired when the band switched to a new name, the Cherry Poppin Daddies. Derived from jive slang the members had overheard on a vintage race record. The band played their first show as the Cherry Poppin Daddies at the Wow Hall in Eugene on March 31st, 1989. So, no shock. On March 31st, they played their first gig as Cherry Poppin Daddies. In April, the band gets hit with a lot of complaints about their name, with some women confronting Steve. I'm
sure it's me who's having the problem here, but in case you don't see me...
No, you came back.
Okay, all right.
Just when you thought you were out,
pulls you back in.
The dreaded your connection is unstable. I was always like, yeah, we're slowing down.
Man,
it's me. It's got to be me. I'm the problem.
It's going to be me.
You're back.
All right. Fabulous.
I do want to ask, because perfect break in the action here. Jive? That's a jive phrase? Or am I being problematic asking about that?
No, jive slang would...
Cherry Poppin? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Huh?
No lies detected. I tell you no lies, my friend.
Fair enough. Continue.
It just proves, Michael, that you are not a Bee Gees fan.
Very true. Very true.
So something that Steve shares actually, with your family there, Shane, he owned an avant-garde video store back in the day at this time.
I'm
like trying to figure out where this connection is going here.
It's like his great grandfather was cutting people's ears off too. I would not
justice.
Yeah, I would not say avant-garde video store by any stretch. Independent,
but a video store, yes, an independent video store. Yes,
avant-garde makes it sound like they were releasing water sport videos from R. Kelly in the 80s.
That's right. 3 girls, 1 cup.
Gigi Allen, someone pisses on in a cup on stage and drinks it.
Well, so, like I said, so very soon after, literally just within days of performing their first show as the Cherry Poppin Daddies, they got hit with numerous complaints, and a couple women confronted Steve outside of his video store and started heckling him and threw some beverage at him as a result as well.
Was it grenadine?
The liquid substance remains unknown.
That was just that was a shout out for Courtney there, just so that I could try to get something going there.
Is that why the bees were red honey?
I see.
It
what
was,
you did.
in fact.
Yes. I got the reference.
You remembered. You were there.
It's been so long since episode 69, I can't remember.
It's been a long time since the rock and roll is what it's been. But
so the backlash to the name prompted the band to briefly change their name yet again to the Bad Daddies, playing several shows under this new moniker.
That's
Bad Daddies isn't great, but it's I guess a little bit better than the Cherry Poppin Daddies.
Depends on the context.
Yeah, I was like,
they Kill Bill 2 of it all. Why, Daddy? Have you been a bad daddy? I was a real bad daddy.
Oh dear. So the Cherry Poppin Daddies, they sought to differentiate themselves from other Northwest rock bands of the era by having a horn section and featuring outlandish stage theatrics and encouraging their audience to dance.
Like John Landis?
Outlandish.
I'm sorry.
I heard someone else say something incorrectly and I got really excited. I'm like, please, Shane, do something.
I saw you getting all excited over there, Michael.
So we all get mealy mouthed. It's just unfortunately I'm enough of an asshole that no one else wanted to call me on it when it happens.
It rarely happens to you, but only because you get kind of do this regularly and with the.
I have had a little practice, yes.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can't say that because I do this on the regular and I still cannot pronounce words to save my life.
Yes, but you're also drunk, so.
Touche.
Oh, I'm drinking. Can I use that excuse?
You can try. Not sure it's going to help.
I'm drinking. I'm totally okay.
Look, man,
cool. I'm down with it.
I can't pronounce words to save my life. Hi, fucking yeah.
All right. So, referencing this time period, Perry spoke of the Cherry Poppin Daddies' ideology by saying it was our way of saying screw you, to the alternative rock phoniness.
Literally.
We wanted to have
pop
fun.
Your cherry.
That's right.
Daddy.
Bend over and take it.
It's in the headline. It's all right there.
Mm-hmm. So he said, it was our way of saying screw you. We wanted to have fun, outrageously have a good blast without even thinking about it. That's right. He wanted to have a good blast without even thinking about it.
You know what? I can't fault him for it. I can't.
Who doesn't love to have a good blast?
Exactly.
I'm also going to apologize to everybody, but I am such a king acolyte that now every time you're saying this, all I'm hearing is just the opening tones of Carrie of people saying, plug it up.
Oh dear.
Sorry, you said that several times. Just
here.
Yeah.
I don't even know what else to say to that. Like plug it up, and I was like, oh god.
I'm just thinking of people pelting the Cherry Poppin Daddies with tampons while they're trying to perform. It's horrible.
Plug it up.
Get one in the horns, the saxophonist almost dies.
I suspect that they would have rolled with that had that happened at the time. I could see it.
Well, as long as it wasn't a pad, they could have rolled with it. So,
all right. So, in July of 1989, the Daddies recorded their first demo cassette, 4 from On High, which included 4 tracks of funk rock and punk-influenced swing. The cassette sold over 1,000 copies in the Eugene and Portland areas, enabling the band to self-produce their debut LP, Ferociously Stoned, released the following year in 1990.
So again, certainly speaks to a lot of the, socialist perspective that they were trying to espouse.
Mm-hmm.
Ferociously Stoned.
Well, the album's name was a reference to a Motorhead song, Born to Lose.
Oh, so you say.
So it is. Or are you suggesting that's a lie, Shane?
I may be.
Well, maybe or are.
Well, I mean, you came up with that so quickly. It would be silly of me to say that it was a lie.
Okay.
I'll
you're
say
lying.
it's a lie. Y'all beating around the bush. I'm going for it. I'm diving in.
No,
You're
it's true.
popping the cherry. Okay.
It's true. The Cherry Poppin Daddies named their first album in reference to the Motorhead song Born to Lose.
Okay. Well, plug it up.
Yeah. Ferociously Stoned set a near record for all-time advanced sales in Eugene, Oregon's record stores, coming in second only to REM.
Which album from REM, I should ask?
You should ask, and I should know.
I was like, if
but
you
I
throw
don't.
that out, I'm sure, yeah.
You should ask. I don't know. I will follow that up on a future REM Disinformed podcast episode.
Fables of the Reconstruction. I'll throw that one out there just as a guess.
Yeah, and I'll say sure.
Maybe
And now-
Green. See, here's where you're going to run into a problem, is because I can probably run through as much REM as you can run through of the Cherry Poppin Daddies, which is disgusting, I know, but I can document it.
And I'm losing my religion.
That's it. That's a song title.
That is a song.
I got that
that's
one.
literally all I know for REM. And the fact that what's his face from REM, the main guy, he would often like pop onto Stephen Colbert's like Colbert Report and like just hang out, in little snippets there. I do remember that.
Well, Michael Stipe is one of my favorite people.
Yeah,
Apparently he's no Steve Perry, but
who is really?
Michael Buck. That's who. But
He's definitely no Steve Perry. His name is Michael Buck.
I have behind me, apocryphally enough, the single of REM's Day Sleeper, which I got on the same trip to Washington, D.C., where the sack of shit slam caused a broken bed. And I fell in love with REM probably in the mid-90s. When everybody else did, once we started running through that time frame, but they are one of my favorite bands, strangely enough. I don't talk about them a lot, but
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to explore them a little bit more because I'm only familiar literally with that one song. When they were big, I was probably a little young for it, but also at that time period, I was really into like Sublime in the mid 90s there.
They're a lot of fun. That is another one of those bands that is stylistically like genre schizophrenic. They really have a lot of shades and gradients to their material. Really fun listen.
Okay, then I'd be very interested because that is very much the Cherry Poppin Daddies in terms of all over the place. So I'd be interested in that.
If you want to have a fun trip, like listen to the REM catalog and then jump and listen to like the Genesis catalog, which is made even more impactful by swapping like lead singers in the middle of the run. There's a lot of fun to be had there, from my perspective.
I like Genesis as well. I agree with that. All right, so as I said, they set a near all-time advanced sales in Eugene. The album became a regional success, remaining for over a year on the Rocket's Northwest Top 20 list and receiving favorable reviews in the Oregonian and alternative press. At one point, the Cherry Poppin Daddies were planning an animated music video for the song Teenage Brain Surgeon, though ultimately scrapped the idea due to production cost. Teenage Brain Surgeon, a phenomenal song, highly recommend.
I will have to explore.
It's fantastic. You'll love it. Ferociously Stoned was originally released on vinyl and CD by independent label Subpar Records. The vinyl cover depicted 3 bikini-clad women clutching stones against a backwards American flag, and the subsequent CD release featuring only the band's name with censor bars over the word cherry and poppin'.
Bar Daddies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that is the typical logo. Like if you search, Ferociously Stoned, that's the logo you'll usually see. But I have the original vinyl there with the 3 lovely ladies there in their bikinis and the backwards American flag. And only last month got Steve Perry to sign it. So that was fun.
When they stayed at your house, or?
No, when I went out to DC to see them.
Aww.
Yeah, they're staying later this year.
I see. Well,
okay, so there's still a chance.
We'll find out what else he signs when that rolls around.
Well, that's when the real Cherry Poppin
fans.
happens.
Like I said, on our OnlyFans. Yeah.
That's right. All right. So having released their first album,
plug it up.
Now, instead of seeing censor bars over the words cherry and poppin', I'm just picturing tampons. Tampons over cherry, tampons over poppin', and just daddies.
I'm also seeing you screaming that as Steve Barry as he barrels into
Plug it up! Plug it up!
Yeah, he goes to the washroom and he's like, Mike, it's overflowing. Plug it up!
Sure, that's why you would say that.
Yeah.
Oh, daddy.
That's my story and I'm sticking to it.
Okay.
So, in March 1991, when the Cherry Poppin Daddies had temporarily shortened their name to The Daddies to alleviate the controversy surrounding their name, the album was re-released with the shortened band name and new cover art featuring a skeleton in formal wear, modeled after the Grateful Dead's Uncle Sam skeleton.
Oh, fun.
Is the shorting of the name bullshit?
It is not. The Daddies. In fact, when I saw them last month, they were introduced as the Daddies because Cherry Poppin Daddies, still controversial, when they were playing a swing dancing lesson venue. Which is what it was. I was the only one there that cared about the band. Everybody else ignored the band and they were there for like the swing dancing lesson stuff that was happening. And I was there watching the band. Sad. Yeah, but the band loved me for it. They were like, they all talked to me afterwards and stuff. And they were like, I said, you knew pretty much all the words, practically could have had you on stage. And I was like, yeah, I'm here for you guys. I don't care about this dancing stuff going on behind me.
Put me in, coach. I'm ready.
That's
my time to shine.
I'm like, it's also such a bizarre gig. Like they flew across the country for that.
They apparently got paid quite well.
I would imagine so, but yeah, that's so...
There were a lot of people there. It was a big venue, and there were a lot of people there. So,
and you're the one who's paying attention.
Only one, and I'm the only, literally, whole venue. I took pictures of it when I was showing Elda and stuff as well. Everyone else dancing away, having time, and I'm the only one paying attention to the band. In fact, I got invited to dance 2 times, once by this lovely elderly woman who just, I think, was being sweet. And then once by a very young, attractive woman who seemed offended when I turned her down. Like, I'm
not here for this. I'm here for them.
Basically that was it. I was like, I'm not here for the dance. That's literally what I said. I was like, no, I'm not here for the dancing. I'm here for this. She's like, come on, sugar, come. Like, it'll be fun. And I was like, it's not going to happen. And then she kind of got in a little huff and went off.
That's a phrase I need to. I was about to say, clip that. Come on, sugar, come. That's right. Plug it up. But Michael has done some interpretive and swing and dancing in his history. I have seen. There's at least photographic evidence.
Talk about my wedding?
No, I've seen you documented on a dance floor on social media.
When I actually was doing ballroom.
When you were doing some dancing, yes.
Yeah, I have a
ballroom.
A year's worth of air quotes ballroom
Plug
dancing
it up.
experience. Exactly.
Did you put it to use during your wedding?
Hell no, I did.
I do have to say,
is that a yes or a no? Hell no,
I did not. Hell no, I did not.
One of my favorite moments of your wedding in its entirety was you dancing with Josie, though, I have to say. That was an absolute delight. It was a lot of fun.
It was very adorable. Mm-hmm.
Melissa at that point had said, like, I wish I'd had a stepdad that was like that.
Aww.
So,
That's sweet.
Heartbreaking. I got a little misty when she was saying it, too. I was like, yep, here I go again.
Oh, no.
Adam
West. I might be like that too.
Yeah. There go my nipples again.
All right, gentlemen, circling back to the topic at hand.
Oh, okay.
Ferociously Stoned featured Steve Perry on a 2-string bass and Jason Moss, the band's guitarist, on a 3-string guitar.
What are they, the presidents of the United States of America?
Nice. Yeah, I guess it is quite like that. Yeah,
Millions of peaches?
Yeah, Steve, the quote being, if a song is good, played on an instrument with 2 strings, it probably is a good song, Perry later told Guitar World. Also, there's no body of 2-string guitar work that you have to live up to. You don't have to worry about being as good as Tal Farrow or Eric Clapton or Stevie Ray Vaughan. You're just you.
means we can't afford the other 2 strings. Which 2 strings were they? I need to know now.
I should know and I don't. I guess.
I was like, if it was the E string and the A string, like, okay, that would make sense for bass. But if they're rocking the D and the G, they're having a rough time differentiating between the guitar. But though, if that's, if they have the D and the G on the bass, and then they've got like the high E and B, and then the high G on the guitar there, they've basically just made a single instrument with those 2 things.
With our powers combined,
we can make a chord together.
Okay, so that was what they said. They were happy that they didn't have to live up to a body of work that already existed there.
Okay, that's reasonable. It's very punk rock.
Yep. So while the album is driven primarily by funk and swing, Ferociously Stoned also features experiments in psychedelic pop with a song called Lifeboat Mutiny, disco with a song called Suicide Kings, and a James Brown-style rhythm and blues song called You Better Move. Also, they have a song on the album called Flovilla Thatch versus the Virile Garbage Man.
Yeah,
there's a turn of phrase.
It is a very interesting song. Yeah, Flovilla Thatch versus the Virile Garbage Man. So Flovilla Thatch is the name of a character in the Russ Meyer film Beneath the Valley of the Ultra Vixens, which is a 1979 satirical sexploitation film directed by American filmmaker Russ Meyer and written by Roger Ebert and Meyer. So kind of a unique little bit there with Roger Ebert hopping in. So
naturally.
that's where the name Flovilla Thatch comes in. And there's a little breakdown in it. And I think you, or at least I, appreciate what the song is speaking about. So I'll give you a little bit of the lyrics here. So, hey girl, I'm talking to you. 2 is the number of the voodoo that you do. My kinky Twinkie is black and blue. Your pointer sisters are just too good to be true. She's got the hump. Ain't talking about your rump. That vicious double bump. Your busy front is pumping up my bass. Got the hump. Clock dem mother's jumps. The bump that really thump. Your busy front is jamming in my face. Turn those mothers out.
You should say...
Especially spoken word.
Yes. Well, to continue.
If you had only ended it with plug it up, I think it would have been perfect.
Well, that actually comes in the next little bit here. So the next bit of the lyrics is, Holy Toledo, twin torpedoes, my Cub Scout pitched a tent in my Speedos. I squirt dessert and flirt with skirt and rub my genie in the lamp until my fingers hurt. Cross your heart, you're going strapless. That's a pretty pearl necklace. Drop your record on my needle, stick my head between your speakers. You remind me of my mommy, that's an awfully large pastrami. Can you use a melon baller? I'm a 1-900 caller.
And I feel like this definitely speaks to the disenfranchised workers in the steel mills. There are some folks in a paper factory somewhere feel very, very appropriately represented. The despondency of the workaday ennui of the American iron worker really appropriately represented by this. Fuck me.
Plug it up.
In
whose endo? What do you mean?
I think
speakers though.
That's right. I think really the line that best speaks to the plight of the working class was my kinky Twinkies black and blue.
Yes, I mean that does often happen if you get it trapped in a vice while you're trying to late plate steel.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I squirt dessert and flirt with skirt and rub my genie in the lamp until my fingers hurt.
Yeah, see, this is why I might have been a little, more incredulous about all this highbrow fucking, nonsense getting thrown out. I've heard some of the material.
Yes. Well,
it's delightful.
Well, yes, clearly a song about boobs, but
I had no idea.
Well, you're a bunch of young college guys, right? So I can't blame them. It's a good song.
I didn't know if it was the prefrontal protuberances or something. It could have been like your nostrils.
I mean, his mom had a big pastrami, if I recall correctly.
Well, I think he was the one with the awfully large pastrami, but
He's
yes.
the daddy.
But
Plug it
yes,
up.
well, they do talk about other things. So, like an interesting song on the album, and what I kind of like about it is what they often do is they kind of touch. Obviously, that song just being about boobs isn't a great example.
You don't say.
What?
But they do often touch on some darker material.
Oh,
But
vaginas. Okay.
Right. But they set the lyrics, they set these darker lyrics to like upbeat swing dance songs or, other type of upbeat music in which the juxtaposition of the music with the lyrics is like startling to the point where you can be out on the dance floor. In fact, it happened just last month where everybody's dancing away, having a great time, because if you're not listening to the lyrics, it is just a very peppy, happy swing song. But then when you actually listen to the lyrics, some of it can be quite dark material. For instance, they have a song called Drunk Daddy. And it opens with, Mama married a big asshole, whiskey bottles on the floor. He keeps on watching TV, stepchild, tired of being poor. Kitchen smells like a rotten garbage. I can't chew my food, my face is sore. Mama didn't come home last evening. Neighbors say that she's a whore. Some folks never want for nothing. I'm a worn-out hand-me-down. Stupid rich kid gets me angry. Lord, I'm gonna cut him down. Now I'm grown up, the same old story. At 21, I fell in love. She left me just like the others. Jesus, why'd you curse my love? Drunk daddy broke my fingers. Drunk daddy done kicked my head. Drunk daddy smashed my sister. Turned my whole world red. Blood red.
Now,
Well.
which hole are we referring to?
But that song, if
But
you
yes,
listen to it, is a super like peppy dance song that you would never think. It's like, oh, that you listen to it and you're like, oh man, that's like a dad that's like beating the crap out of a sister and him and breaking his fingers and but if you just listen to the music itself, you're like, I can go dance with my wife about this,
That is something I have commonly. It's we've called that the Shane as well. It's something I'm very fond of having. The jauntiest tunes always has the most introspective or acidic or acerbic lyrical content. So I completely appreciate it. It's an excellent device that you can use as a distraction, and you can litmus test your audience very quickly.
Exactly. Yeah.
See if they're really paying attention.
Precisely. Yeah. And I can attest that, this song came out over 30 years ago, and 30 years later, it is still an accurate test because I was the only one listening to the song. Everybody else is happily dancing away. These, elderly couples swinging away, having fun.
Just swishing their fingers,
Well,
doing
and
a
as
swing.
evidence, the first Damn the Weather single that ever came out was a song called Speechless, which I had written about a relationship that I was in where there was absolutely nothing but just physical chemistry between the individual and myself, and discussing the fact that I had no other connection. And it's a very upbeat tune. It's a very, jaunty pop song. And the individual it was written about thought it was a super sweet and romantic sentiment. And I was like, as if to evidence what I'm talking about. And to this day, like, had showed it to people as something that she thought was great. And I don't think anyone ever pointed that out to her, unfortunately. But so, yeah, it's something that's it's a good trope.
There's a Limp Bizkit song very similar to that about...
Oh, fuck.
Where it's true, where the song is about, there's sex is all that's become between like the two people, dirty memories of the simple things that we do. There's not much left.
Thank you for comparing me to Fred Durst.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, and his was first. So, I mean, really, they do say, mimicry is the sincerest form of flattery and all that. So.
Oh, shit. Oh, God. Damn.
Yeah, if I ever get close to attempting to mimic anything Fred Durst has ever done other than intake of oxygen, someone's going to be putting a tag on my toe soon after.
All right. So, moving on to controversies and censorship. So, Cherry Poppin Daddies' early performances often included flamboyant costumes, go-go dancers, phallic stage scenery, prop-heavy skits, and choreographed dance numbers.
What do you mean by phallic?
Oh, we'll get into it.
Plug it up.
That's right. Plug it up.
Plug it up.
Yeah. So Perry, then performing under his mad scientist stage persona of MC Large Drink, would regularly engage in absurdist shock rock stunts, such as mock crucifixion and flag burning. One of the band's, and this is the answer to your question, Michael, one of the band's stage props was known as the Dildorado.
Go on.
That's right. It was known as the Dildorado, or the Moto Penis, or the Dick Car, or the Dildozer.
All of these sound like things that Tasty Cake has marketed in the last 10 years.
It was a riding lawnmower modified to look like a human penis that mimicked ejaculation by shooting colorful fluid from its tip.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
That's creative. I gotta give people credit for that. Like that seems like a very evocative piece of, prop to have on the stage.
Especially when you're coming out to swing music.
It's like either that or they were lampooning George Jones. Someone somewhere is going to laugh at that joke, and it's at Sissy Spacek's expense, I'm sure. But
oh dear. Oh, there it is again.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, jeez. Oh, guys. All right. So in 1990, John Conan entered a float in the annual Eugene celebration. He was going to have the Cherry Poppin Daddies play on it during the celebration parade, but on the day of the parade, it rained, and the band didn't show up out of fear of being electrocuted. However, Steve Perry, the perpetual teenage brain surgeon that he is, came away from this brush with death with an idea. Why not make one of those little cars that follow the horses in parades, only shaped like a penis? Over the course of an undetermined time frame, Steve, John, and friend Bill Beamer downed an undetermined number of beers while they worked out the details. Converting a car would be too much work. The erectile mechanisms would be too cumbersome. They decided,
with that attitude.
That's right. Can't get it up.
All you got to do is get a wacky waving flailing arm inflatable tube man, and
that's not a car.
But you could pop it through the back of the trunk.
But you want the car to be the
like
penis.
Like a cherry.
I don't want the car to be the penis.
You need to ride that cock.
I do not need to ride that pony.
So, after realizing the car would be too difficult, they decided next on making a motorcycle-type vehicle, but they couldn't find a suitable frame on which to build. Next, they thought about using a riding lawnmower. Thanks to Dan Schmidt, who found a used riding mower for sale, quite cheap, construction on the Moto Penis finally began. They designed the contraption as they went along, finding and using spare parts as they needed. The shaft of the penis was made out of a 55-gallon drum. The motor came from an old Ford V8. The handlebars were bought at a used bicycle store. The pneumatic cylinders that erect the vehicle were made out of PVC pipe with discs cut out for an inner tube for the seals. And the air reservoir was made out of a propane tank.
I gotta tell you, I'm on the verge. I know I harangued Michael for discussing the facial hair configuration on a former Russian dictator. Jesus Christ, do we need to get this granular?
We are talking. So first of all, how dare you compare the Dildorado to facial hair? We're talking about a riding lawnmower like that has been made to look like a penis that ejaculates, stuff out on stage.
Firstly, my facial hair is a Dildorado. But
so yeah, this was worth getting into because this isn't just somebody's beard style. This is the Dildorado. This is an all-time iconic vehicle.
That's great, but I'm starting to think that, we're still up barely past their first album, and you listed quite a few. So if this is where we're at, we're going to be here till 2 p.m. on Thursday.
Well, we literally could do parts 2 and 3 as part 2 and 3.
Okay, we're still in part 1.
Yeah, but we're closing in on the end.
Sweet jumping baby Jesus.
Scared. I was fucking scared. I thought you were be like, oh no, we just started part 1.
Hold on, let me look here.
Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I mean, we're making some headway.
Oh,
Pun
God.
intended.
Oh, no.
Jesus.
All right. We'll skip past some of the details of the
Because
moto
if you're
penis.
gonna give me a pardon the pun, blow by blow on every single intricacy of their career, I'm
Well,
not
that's
sure I'm
not the
gonna let you live.
First of all, I would argue that a discussion of the
I-
moto penis is
I
worth
agree.
stepping
I'm
on.
just upset that it took us this fucking long to get to the interesting
Listen,
stuff.
You know, we needed the foreplay, my friend.
I disagree, but
Plus,
okay.
Plus, for the record, we would have streamlined our way quite faster here, except we've taken several detours along the way without the benefit of the moto penis to steer us back on
Yes,
track.
but at the same time, like, I didn't realize you were giving us a dissertation, so I...
Well, all right. Finally, after months of labor, I'll skip past the last little bit there.
Labor
Finally,
after
after
the
months
dick,
of
yes.
labor, the moto penis was taken to gill seat covers to be covered. All right. And the moment of truth arrived. Steve drove the thing out, down the block to the gas station, filled up the tank, and we were ready.
Did he fucking use regular or unleaded? Is it
I
a
like
diesel?
to think he used diesel.
So-
Head canon, he used diesel.
That's right. So when the time to test the erectile and ejaculatory mechanisms came, it was right in front of Steve's house. The functions worked. It was indeed able to shoot out condoms out towards the street.
And
And it was a busy street during rush hour, too. So he's just shooting condoms out the moto penis at the cars as they drive by.
I thought it
Hell
shot
yeah.
fluids.
No, well, it did both. So
That seems counterintuitive.
well, so now that we know that the ejaculatory function worked, the dildozer had 6 barrels. See, I'm answering your question here. You asked
6
questions.
barrels?
That's right, 6 barrels. It's very virile.
Woo.
A wad of tissue paper was first stuffed down the tube. Then they poured whatever they wanted to shoot out. So then you'd stuff another wad of tissue down to stop the stuff from spilling it. You know, nobody wants to bust their load too early.
I disagree.
So
I can't
Zero
wait to
to-
bust mine and get out of here.
0 to 60 in 2 seconds flat. Go.
So the moto penis made its debut at the Herb Memorial Union Ball at the University of Oregon when the Cherry Poppin Daddies opened for Fishbone. The barrels were loaded with condoms, sequins, and popcorn. Why condoms, you ask? Well, a local AIDS activist who was HIV positive agreed to help pay for the construction of the moto penis, but only if it would ejaculate condoms into the audience, and thus it did.
This is a diversionary tactic. Why the fuck were they shooting popcorn out? And why would anyone want to eat said popcorn?
I think popcorn's the one that made the most sense.
No, you got sequins and condoms. Why would you shoot popcorn? Who would want to eat sequin popcorn?
Everybody needs a snack. It's the mid-90s, or early
Snack.
90s. So, although it hasn't been used since 1996, there are persistent rumors that the Willy on Wheels will rise up again in glorious virility. This story is far from over. The daddies
I
ever
can tell. I am so sick of this motherfucking snacks and this motherfucking moto penis.
All right. I'll leave the moto penis behind and we'll drive on. So,
Thank you.
with things like the moto penis and one on their name, it's a little surprise to learn that the band attracted controversy from feminist groups who condemned the band's performances as pornographic, citing their name and sexually charged lyricisms as promotion of sexism and misogyny.
But did they describe the plight of the modern man that is trying to be expressed when trying to rebuff these,
That's right. Well,
accusations?
When in rebuffing them, Perry disputed the claims, defending the controversial elements as misinterpreted satire.
See, we talk about tits, but we also talk about the working man and
well,
working
this is all
stiffs.
very early
and
in
that's
their
where
career.
moto penis came from.
It's just a working stiff. Why are you going to downgrade it? Why are you
That's
going to
right.
make fun of it?
Well done. Working stiff. I love it. All right. So vigilante protest groups habitually tore down or defaced the band's posters and sought to boycott against venues that would book the group and even newspapers who gave them a positive review. The Daddies concerts routinely became sites of organized picketing and, on one occasion, a bomb threat. The band members themselves were frequent recipients of hate mail. I know, I'm
They could be. No, it's fine. They could be freaking recipients of hate mail, too.
Frequent recipients of hate mail, threats, and physical harassment. As I mentioned earlier, Perry claimed that once an irate protester threw a cup of hot coffee in his face as he was walking down the street. The Daddies initially refused to change their name on the grounds of artistic freedom, but a number of venues refused to book them due to the negative publicity. The band was even temporarily banned from the Wow Hall out in Eugene, where they had previously served as a house band. So, as we discussed earlier, the group later bowed to community pressure and performed under the Daddies, the Bad Daddies, and similar variations within Eugene, but performed under their original name while touring elsewhere.
And, of course, still performing the exact same material and likely showing up.
And driving the Dildozer around, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Well, they changed the name, so it's okay. Like, they went from the Cherry Poppin to the Daddies, so it's fine.
Well, if the Daddies roll out on a motorized penis, it's a little different than if the Cherry Poppin Daddies roll out on the motorized penis.
Because there's intent.
I'm not sure.
There's intent behind that name.
The sin of omission.
Yeah, well, they did lots of stuff. Like I said, they did mock crucifixions. They did flag burnings.
Yeah,
it was a lot of stuff. In fact, Steve once came out in nothing but a diaper and poured chocolate syrup all over himself.
Hot.
So you're describing them as like the Marilyn Manson of the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, I guess a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
So, during one performance of the song Up From the Gutter, Steve was carried out on stage as Jesus and tied to a full-size cross. Another time, Steve was featured backlit behind a sheet. While the theme from 2001 played, Steve manipulated a 4-foot-long fiberglass pickle. But from the audience's point of view, it didn't look like a pickle.
Looked like a, large plank of steel being carried by a frustrated mill worker.
It's the obelisk from 2001!
All right, so moving on to their national touring and independent success.
I'm afraid I can't do that, Steve.
Not with that attitude.
Throughout the early 90s, the Daddies continued to remain a reliably popular and profitable draw in the Pacific Northwest and Northern California club circuit. Despite earning accolades from the local music press, including winning San Francisco Weekly's title of Best Unsigned Band in 1994, the Daddies struggled to achieve wider recognition and distribution.
I'm not shocked that a band that has a moto penis won the San Francisco Award for Best New Artist.
That's right. They just ejaculated right onto the scene.
That
showed up
they
in
did.
Some Birkenstocks, they wouldn't have been more popular.
I mean, really, the Daddies were, ahead of their time. Really, you could just say they came too early. But
terrible problem.
So, following a number of changes in their member and managerial lineups,
member?
That's right. In their member lineups.
They're
they
cycling
upgraded the moto penis.
That's
okay,
right.
Got it.
They have a new sheath every night.
Bigger and better.
Ribbed for her pleasure.
Ooh.
About to cut her grass.
It's so veiny.
They brought back the dick vein and then some.
That's right. No need to shave, ladies. We've got it covered. We'll do the trimming.
Plug me up, Daddy.
Plug it up.
Yeah. So, anyways, it doesn't matter. I was thinking of some sort of early 90s thing like, there's a...
Unplugged, MTV, yes.
No, yeah, well, yeah, but yes. All right. So, in the fall of '94, they embarked on their first national tour, which was highlighted by a set at the CMJ Music Marathon Festival and Convention out in New York City. So, upon returning to Eugene without any advantageous deals, the Daddies instead bought and constructed their own independent record label and recording studio, Space Age Bachelor Pad Records, where they self-produced and self-recorded their second studio album, Rapid City Muscle Car, which was released in December 1994. I think I referenced this one with you guys.
I was going to say, I've heard that title before.
Yeah. So, like Ferociously Stoned, the band chose the album name from a lyric from a Motorhead song, this time Overkill.
I would never have, determined that as a peak influence for that band, having heard both. It wouldn't have struck me that was an influence.
Well, yeah, fair enough, yeah. The only way to feel the noise is when it's good and loud, as Lemmy says, so...
Indeed.
So Rapid City Muscle Car was structured around the Daddies' desire to create a stylistic concept album in which each track was composed as the total musical opposite of the last. Quote, whipping the listener around as if he or she was experiencing stylistic G-forces, but remaining thematically coherent through interconnected lyricism following an abstract narrative.
So it was all about tits.
They left behind they left behind those boyish ways there. They retired the Dildorado and they retired the songs about boobs.
Damn. So they went on to like ass or I mean, you gotta, cover your bases, so to speak. Like, you can't just, like, thematically, yeah, sure, it's all encompassing, but you have to go from one style to another style, so you gotta go from one location to another. So
absolutely
makes sense to me. Yeah.
Clap them cheeks.
Mm-hmm. Described by Perry as an idea album, a very psychedelic album, Rapid City Muscle Car was a distinct departure from the upbeat dance music vibe of Ferociously Stoned, showcasing a diverse range of disparate genres. Building upon the band's then-standard repertoire of swing and funk, Rapid City weaves between ska punk, rockabilly, country, psychedelic, big band, and lounge. The album also makes extensive use of outside instruments, adding acoustic guitars, accordions, clarinets, and vibraphones in addition to the band's keyboards and horn section. A full big band orchestra is even used on Come Back to Me, a cover song taken from the 1965 song from the Broadway musical On a Clear Day You Can See Forever. I think it was made famous by Sammy Davis Jr. So while Perry has retrospectively cited Rapid City as his favorite personal Daddies album, he revealed in a 1995 interview with the Los Angeles Times that the album sold only okay, but ultimately didn't surpass the sales of Ferociously Stoned. So when they abandoned the Dildorado and the songs about boobs, they sold less albums.
Go figure.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
People are short on substance.
No.
Yeah, the album covers a wide range of topics, not boobs, but it covers things from a chronic cheater to hunting down a deadbeat dad to alcoholism to suicide. So the Daddies began dedicating themselves to full-time touring in '95, playing over 200 shows across 2 or 3 national tours per year, including spots at prominent music festivals such as South by Southwest in a city near and dear to my heart, Austin, Texas. Mm-hmm. As the band gradually built fan bases in markets around the world, they began attracting interest from several high-profile record labels. Labors. Because they're all about that labor support,
Indeed. It's very important to them.
Mm-hmm. I should have highlighted some of the songs that actually touched on that. Instead, I referenced boobs.
Well, again...
Can't be faulted. Can't be faulted.
There's you can leave the occasional crevice fiddled, I suppose, but we're very exploratory here.
That's right. Mm-hmm. So, however, when the suggestion or stipulation was made that the Cherry Poppin Daddies stick to one genre, Perry invariably rejected any label offers, not wanting any outside influences controlling the band's sound.
Respectable.
Nice.
And the concept of the record sounds fantastic, so I'm sure it was excellent.
It's a really good album. So in a similar mindset, not wishing to be pigeonholed into any specific scene or genre, Perry at first refused to tour with ska bands. Though after a highly successful and well-received tour with Fresno ska band Let's Go Bowling, he acquiesced and the Cherry Poppin Daddies eventually carved out a lucrative niche within the national ska scene, forming regular touring partnerships with the likes of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, Real Big Fish, and Less Than Jake. And in fact, when they're coming to the town in which I live now, later this year, it is for a ska festival. So, while the mainstream's growing focus on punk and ska by the mid-1990s presented the Cherry Poppin Daddies with further commercial opportunities, Perry still insisted foremost on maintaining complete creative control of the band. In February 1996, the Daddies released their third self-produced studio album on Space Age Bachelor Pad Records, called Kids on the Street. Yet another musical departure from the previous record, Kids on the Street was mostly a reflection of the band's growing punk and ska influences, eschewing the Daddies' trademark brassy funk and swing in favor of guitar-driven rock, punk, and ska, as well as a stylistic detour into jazz and country. Notably, Bradley Noel, of fellow ska band Sublime fame, who I mentioned earlier, lends vocals to the song White Man, singing the lyrics, "When I'm ignorant, I'm still at ease, fill my chest and express expertise, 'cause my gender is like fancy attire. It emboldens its lowliest occupier. You can't trust me 'cause I'm a white man. I take more than I need 'cause I'm a white man. I can understand you're afraid to take my hand, 'cause when it all goes bad, I'll stab you in the back, white man."
Where's the boobs?
See, but that's some social lyricism right there.
It certainly does, yes.
So, with lead singer Steve Perry now assuming a role as a rhythm guitarist, Kids on the Street predominantly features guitar-driven ska and punk, though also branches into such genres as Southern rock with Luther Lane, Western swing with Silver Tongue Devil, and jazz with Here Comes the Snake, which is a song about a penis.
Ha-ha!
Don't call it a comeback.
That's right.
Please don't.
It's what you'll have later.
Here comes the snake, yeah. Wants you to come, and he circles your leg. That's right. So, Perry, it's a really good song, actually. So Perry has stated,
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah. Perry has stated that the abundance of straightforward rock and punk songs on the album, in place of the eclectic nature of the previous records, was partially due to his playing guitar on the album, as he described himself as having limited guitar skills.
And strings, as we've noted.
Yeah, exactly. So, distributed by noted indie label Caroline Records, Kids on the Street wound up becoming the Daddies' most successful release at the time, staying on the Rocket's retail sales top 20 for over 7 months, and even working its way on to the Rolling Stones alternative charts.
Ooh.
And with that, I conclude part 1.
Oh,
Mother
wow.
of pearl.
I will
Mother
say,
of pearl.
I will say that the next 2 parts are shorter.
Oh.
But yes.
You don't say. Can I call bullshit on that one?
No, they're longer. They're twice as long.
Well,
4-hour episodes.
No, they're
Let's
shorter.
go.
They're shorter.
Oh, okay. There's a degree to which I didn't realize you would be editorializing when you were talking about the band's history, but yeah.
Well, so you did catch. Let's see. You caught the
One.
No. You caught a couple.
There were several.
So
and
you-
also, was the 5 for the entirety, like all 3 parts?
No, the 5 was for part 1.
Oh, okay. Well, then, fabulous. You did game plan. Kudos.
So
I appreciate that.
You caught the episode 69 when in fact it was episode 80. So you caught the number lie. You caught the Peoria, Arizona,
Oh, true. Yeah.
and I believe that was all you've caught.
Not shocking. Other than,
Easy
you know,
layups.
So, so any other stabs?
me.
Yeah. Whew.
I was gonna call the crucifixion thing, but I feel like the details that were later illustrated helped to kind of alleviate that notion. And I think Michael actually did call the crucifixion as a lie as it was happening. So
No, not that
Something.
he caught something around then, but I don't think it was the crucifixion.
okay,
No.
Yeah, I thought the Daddies would be a good thing to touch on because with such wild things like coming out on stage in a diaper, which by the way wasn't a lie if that was one of the stabs coming up.
I wasn't shocked.
And putting chocolate syrup on yourself or riding around on a Dildorado, and with all the different names, Moto Penis, Dildozer, Dildorado. I thought there's just so much wild stuff happening here that could be bullshit. Like, for instance, one of those names could be a lie. Maybe it's just the Dildozer and Moto Penis is, in fact, the lie.
Okay, then.
But it's not. If that,
I was gonna say no. You're
Yeah.
being too too blasé about it. No. We're good. Yeah.
So, any stabs before I...
No, I think
No.
you have managed to overwhelm with factoids. So
a lot
I-
of factoids.
yeah, my brain is not going to have any sort of cohesive narrative that I can call back to.
All right. Well, I will say that the next lie I thought for sure was about to be called out because even the quote that I gave was a lie, and you cited the correct source of the quote and the correct band in which plays the 2 and 3 string instruments. In fact, everything
All
about
right.
that had nothing to do with the Cherry Poppin Daddies and was all about
it's the president of the United States of America. Okay.
And I even quoted them directly. And when you name dropped them, I was like, oh, crap, he got it.
It's the only band I've ever heard of that has pulled that. And again, I have admitted that I am a neophyte here, and I do know the song that everybody else knows with the Cherry Poppin Daddies. So without knowing the material, I do not know how complex it was, nor what would be required in order to run. And I was like, if it's predominantly like it's a ska band, so if you're playing pretty rudimentary bass lines and the horns are carrying a lot of it, it's like you could get away with having limited strings. Yeah. But it seemed like a bizarre phrase. And yeah, the Presidents are the only band I know that has ever done that.
Yeah, and you were right on it. And I was like, oh, he's sniffing, but he's not saying lie, so I'm just going to keep moving on.
Which is how the game works. It's how the game works. Yep.
But well done. Well done in terms of knowing it. So So there's that. So that's lie number 3 there. Coming up to 4th. So yes, Ferociously Stoned was in fact named after the Motorhead song that I mentioned.
Okay.
Rapid City Muscle Car being named after Motorhead's Overkill is a lie.
Okay.
So I figured that one might pass because I thought, well, if you called the lie on the first one, because Motorhead is such a weird influence, that was the truth. So I thought the second one could skate on by, and it did. So yeah. Nice. But again, I thought you were going to nail it because you were like, that's when you stopped to reflect on it and like such a weird influence. And I was like, oh, he's there again.
Yeah, I'm picking up what you're putting down. I think also it's just I am not the world's biggest devotee to Motorhead, so I don't have enough of a frame of reference to call that out as whether or not that's actually the case.
Oh no, for sure. It's just very funny because you happen to make comments right at both lies.
My timing's impeccable.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't find it.
I think also because like we're so used to things not being lies, and that it's like purposely like the meta of how we play lies has changed so much that even when we have these like inklings of something being weird that you want to expound upon, it doesn't click that, oh, I should probably call bullshit on it. Because that happens. So I think that happens at least every time we do a lying episode, where there's some person that's like, I want to ask more about it. Or I want to talk more about this right around a lie.
And as we've mentioned, I think Michael also is a great deal more attuned and adept at picking out lies because I'm mostly just, looking for places where I can make a joke. So typically I am probably the most tone deaf to finding lies in the course of episodes because I'm over here chomping at the bit.
I do take personal offense at the comparison of the Dildozer to the description of detail on somebody's beard. I was like, I'm talking about a motorized dildo that ejaculates condoms and popcorn.
When you'd mentioned, 3 parts and we have fallen into a pattern of recording longer form again and then breaking it up, I was like, oh my God, if we're just past their first album, if this is the level of detail we're going to get into, like, I'm not going to be able to make it. I might start screaming at you. So,
well, I had to pause and reflect on the Dildozer only because I had to go to the Wayback Machine to get the details for that.
Yeah, and again, it's the topic at that point was very interesting. I think it was more I was feeling the sort of vexation I felt when we got to that section with Michael. I'm like, fuck, just get onto the story. I don't care what his facial hair configuration was. And so I think I was more vexed by like, we should have just got to the goddamn Dildozer like two minutes into this conversation, but we were talking about the unfortunate plight of the steelworker in America.
Well, we did pause to reflect and go over some lovely lyrics about boobs.
Yes, and thank God for that.
Speakers they are.
That's
lovely
right.
Speakers and pastrami between them.
So the last lie.
Mommy pastrami.
Ooh, mommy.
There's a Paul Simon lyric for you. Mommy pastrami rolled out of bed and she ran to the police station.
The last lie of the evening there was when I read through the lyrics of the song White Man and said that notably Bradley Nowell of fellow ska band Sublime fame lends vocals to the song.
Okay.
So Bradley Nowell of Sublime did not in fact have anything to do with that song.
Not shocking.
And that song, although is a Cherry Poppin Daddies song, and all of the lyrics I read are in fact the correct lyrics, they don't appear until their most recent album. not Rapid City Muscle Car from 94.
Okay.
So, a
All
lie
right.
on the placement of the kind of I counted it as one lie, but a lie on who guest stars for the song and a lie of when the song appears in their repertoire.
Does anyone actually guest star on the song?
No, just the band, just an original.
Okay. Well, how unfortunate for the song.
But yeah, those are the 5 lies.
But I guess if you're as uncomfortable as Michael is right now or have been in listening to this episode, that is par for the course. That's how we usually resolve this thing. But thank you, as always, for hanging with us. Pun intended. It is immensely appreciated. And you can continue to plug it up with us every single wonderful Monday with new episodes. And you know how you do that? You subscribe to the show. It helps us out, and it helps you to stick with us. And I'm sure you're going to want to, because this all cock blockery and you know, busting aside, very interesting episode, and it's nice to get back on topic. So thank you for that. And of course, there is a link tree in the show notes below. You can find all of our irrelevant socials there, so you can follow us. And be sure that you rate and review, because we would love to hear from you, and it helps us out with all of that algorithmic nonsense that Michael is so fond of. And so, I think that is going to officially wrap this rascal up like a rubber that flew out of the moto penis. And so, for the Disinformed Dick Cast this week, plug it up! I'm Shane.
And I'm Michael.
Michael.
And zippity zoop, we're out of here.
Zippity zoop, it's up her rear.
Plug it up.
Plug it up.